One person who responded to these by-elections was Andy Burnham, the mayor of Greater Manchester, and he seemed to raise the possibility of changing the electoral system of the country again, moving away from what's called first past the post towards a proportional system. Why did he bring that up?
Labour politicians talk about PR when they lack the confidence to win. And this is an announcement born out of, I think, a sense of weakness rather than strength. The electoral system favours Labour. Every election since 1945, except the last one, and one in the 1950s, has seen Labour win a greater share of seats in the House of Commons than its percentage of the national popular vote. Right? So this is a system that inflates the number of Labour MPs. I find it astonishing, really, that any Labour politician would advocate for a system that would put Labour at a much greater disadvantage than it is now. And quite frankly, I think PR would lead to the breakup of the Labour Party, because I think the Labour Party is really only held together because of first past the post in Westminster.
And no doubt the Tory party as well, given the factions within that. I suppose first past the post creates these big, broad tents and pushes people together. But what are the prospects of, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion, particularly yesterday, over whether or not there is a secret deal between the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party. Many people denying it, but of course there was a secret deal in 1997 between these two parties.
What I found interesting about, I've looked at all of the by-election results that have happened in this Parliament, and what's interesting is that when the Lib Dems have gained the seats, and they've gained 3 in this Parliament, they've increased the number of votes that they had relative to the past general election, almost in direct number to Labour votes going down. So you're seeing Labour voters switching to the Liberal Democrats and handing them seats. So the Lib Dems are doing well out of this. You're not seeing Labour benefit to the same scale simply because there are fewer Lib Dem votes to be passed back to Labour. So I can understand why the Liberal Democrats would be very enthusiastic about this. Less clear for Labour, but the thing is that there's an assumption in Labour that the Lib Dems will be an anti-Tory force. And at the moment, that's how they position themselves. But I think as they win more Conservative seats, their parliamentary party is going to go more to the right. And I think, quite frankly, if Boris Johnson wasn't leader of the Conservative Party, the Lib Dems could be open to someone else. Liz Truss herself, a former Lib Dem. So
this is so interesting, because the Lib Dems have been focusing on this blue wall strategy. The Lib Dem party itself could change ideologically, moving to a space it occupied under Clegg, who was clearly much more happy to go in with the Tories than the Labour Party.
I think possibly even more so. So I think that Clegg's party contained a lot of student seats that they had won in 2010 on the promise of abolishing tuition fees. Those seats are gone for the Lib Dems now. So where do they make up the difference? It's in kind of rural England, right? The West Country, the South West. And those seats are more right-inclined. They're more anti-housing development and some of these policies, which put them really opposite to where Labour wants to put itself. And so I think that these people who sort of think that Labour and Lib Dem votes are interchangeable really are on another planet, to be quite frank, because I think that actually there are clear schisms between these two parties. And I think it's very irresponsible of people like Andy Burnham to pretend like Lib Dems and Labour are just an interchangeable vote.